Limbus Company's 9th Walpurgisnacht event has begun, and with it we got a brand new banner featuring 2 identities and 1 ego. The IDs in question are Dawn Office Faust and Gregor, 2 Burn-Tremor hybrids with access to Scorch and bonus skills 3 too. The ego though will be left for another day, as today I want to focus on the new units. The brand new Dawns utilize assist attacks, coin reuses, tremor bursts, burn activations, and a lot of unique buffs to provide value to multiple archetypes at once. Also, they buffed the old Dawn Sinclair in hopes of making him relevant once more. As such, a couple of questions arise. How good are the new Dawns? Where should you use them? And is the newly buffed Dawn Sinclair worth using now? In today's video, I aim to answer all of these questions and more, by first looking at the kits of the new identities and then discussing their performance in combat, as well as the performance of Dawn Sinclair in Season 7 compositions. But before we start, I have to remind you guys that most of my viewers are not subscribed, so if you find yourself coming back to my videos or end up enjoying this one, consider subscribing. It takes just 1 second and helps me out a lot. Now let's get to the Dawns. We'll start with their kits, and because we're looking at 2 identities, I'll be a bit reductive so that we can go fast. Faust has decent HP, an average speed roll, and a defense level of 0. Her sins are Pride, Gluttony, Sloth and Wrath, with a Wrath defense. All of Faust's skills gain power based on Burn and Tremor on the target, while also getting reuses and Clash power based on Fire Butterfly Coffin. Faust's skill 1 clashes at up to 17, gives 4 Coffin, inflicts Burn, Tremor and Burn count, and it gets to reuse the last coin once at 20 Coffin. Faust also has a skill 1-2, which rolls up to 13, deals more damage based on Coffin, and inflicts Burn and Tremor count. Her skill 2 is Butterfly Slash, which clashes at up to 22, gives 6 Coffin, and inflicts Burn and Tremor count based on Coffins, and then inflicts Tremor and also inflicts Burn and bursts on reuse with its second coin. Faust's skill 3 is Eject. This one clashes at up to 26, gives 8 Coffins, inflicts Burn and Tremor count based on Coffins, inflicts 3 Tremor, and bursts up to 3 times with the final coin after converting Tremor on the enemy into Scorch. When Faust's skill 3 is used at 30 Coffins, it activates as her skill 3-2 instead. This skill has Unfocused Volley, clashes at up to 30, inflicts 3 Tremor and Burn count on use, and each hit of the skill randomly inflicts either Tremor or Burn, while also converting Tremor into Scorch. The last coin gets reused and bursts while dealing bonus damage, and at attack end, the skill inflicts 1 power down on all targets hit, and gives Faust 1 Battle Instinct and Overheated Coffin. Faust's defense is Stigmatize, a clashable counter that rolls up to 17, gives 6 Coffins at combat start, and makes Faust lose Burn on self on use and Clash win. The coins inflict Tremor and Burn. When Faust has 30 Coffins, the defense is activated as Dismemberment at high noon instead. This skill is virtually a copy of her skill 3-2, but it has a missing health conditional, and at attack end, it consumes all Coffins and all Burn on Faust, heals Faust based on that Burn, and gives 3 Battle Instinct. As for her passives, Faust has 3. Hit-Proof Coat is the first one, and it grants Faust 0 Coffins at encounter start. It also makes Faust immune to staggers and death due to Burn damage, and makes her take half damage from Burn, going up to quarter damage when she's below half HP. Her second passive is Sonbe, and it gives Dawn Sinclair a buff while replacing it with a different one when Faust dies. Her third passive requires 3 Wrath owned and does the following. At combat start, Faust gains Coffins based on her battle instincts. Also, Faust uses her skill 1-2 when a Dawn ally staggers an enemy, and when they use their skill 3s and skill 3-2s. Also, if Dawn Sinclair is on field, Faust deals up to 10 wrath damage based on burn with her reused coins, up to 20 per turn. Her support passive is Lone Fixer, and it requires 3 wrath and lust owned, and gives the last surviving ally 3 offense and defense level up. Next up, Don Gregor. He has high health, 1 less max speed than Faust, and a +4 defense level. His sins are Sloth, Pride and Wrath, with a Wrath defense. Gregor's skills also get power from Burn and Tremor, and he also gets extra coins from his unique effect. Although, in Gregor's case, the coins are actually added on top of the skill and are not reuses. His skills 1 and 2 simply inflict Burn and Tremor while getting a copy of their last coins at 20 Light of Daybreak. The second skill bursts Tremor when hitting with said coin. Gregor's skill 3 is Dawn Splitter. It rolls up to 25, deals bonus damage based on burn on self and the enemy, gives 2 random allies 2 protection, and at 20 or more Light of Daybreak, the skill gets unbreakable coins, extra power, and a burn activation on its last coin. At attack end, the skill gives 1 Dawn Herald to all allies next turn, giving 1 more if Gregor has 20 plus Light of Daybreak. The coins of the skill inflict Tremor and Burn potency and count, convert Tremor to Scorch, and burst it once. At 30 Light, Dawn Splitter turns into Crack of Dawn. This skill rolls up to 29, and has 3 attack weight. It deals more damage based on unused attack weight, and is otherwise very similar to Dawn Splitter, but it gives 3 Dawn Herald, consumes Burn on Gregor and heals him, and consumes all Light of Daybreak. As for Gregor's defense, he has a clashable counter which gives assist defense, 5 Light of Daybreak, and rolls up to 13, while taking away some of Gregor's burn. At 30 Light of Daybreak, this skill turns into Crack of Dawn as well. The assist defense is another clashable counter, Heat Haze. This skill also gives 5 light, as well as 2 protection. If Gregor is at 20 plus light or used Crack of Dawn this turn, the coins of the skill become unbreakable. As for Gregor's passives, he also gets 3. The first one is the same as Faust's. The second one is also similar, as it grants Dawn Sinclair buffs, including Escape Apparatus. On top of that though, it also gives all Dawn allies a Dawn Office buff based on how many Dawn allies are present. Gregor's third passive is Morgenfeuer, and it requires 2 Wrath and Sloth owned. It allows Gregor to get 2 Light of Daybreak on hit, as long as he has Dawn Herald. He also has the same follow-ups as Faust, but he does it with his skill 1, and the same wrath damage from Dawn Sinclair is also present. As for Gregor's support passive, he gets Stigma Workshop Prosthesis. It requires 3 Wrath Resonance and allows the highest HP ally to inflict 2 Tremor when hitting enemies with Burn. And if the enemy had 10 or more Burn, the last coin of said ally's skill will also proc Tremor Burst and reduce count by 1. With this, we're done with the kits of the 2 Dawns. But we should also take a look at their unique effects. Fire Butterfly Coffin and Light of Daybreak both stack to 30 and are capped at 20 stacks gained per turn. Faust and Gregor both gain the effects on hit with base attack skills, with Faust getting a flat 2 and Gregor getting 1 to 3 based on burn. Both effects also inflict burn on Faust and Gregor, and Light of Daybreak makes Gregor inflict more burn potency and count based on its stack. Battle Instinct stacks up to 3, gives Faust 2 speed, and makes her inflict 1 more burn potency and count with base skills. Also, her strongest skills deal bonus damage based on the stack. Overheated Coffin has a stack of 1, and it expires at turn end after giving 3 burn to Faust. Dawn Office stacks to 3 and gives 1 offense level per stack. At max stacks, it also heals 5 SP at turn start. The effect expires if all Dawns are killed. Dawn Herald has a max stack of 3, and it makes burn-based skills deal more damage, with an even bigger increase for burn wrath skills. It also grants those skills 1 clash power, which transforms into base power for Dawn identities. There's also a couple of Sinclair focused buffs, but we'll look at those later. Now that we're done with the kits completely, we can look at the new duo in combat. The new Dawns are Burn-Tremor hybrids, so we will look at them in those two teams and their variations, while comparing their performances to other units that want to take up the slots. Both units play around the same core gimmick, and that gimmick is the fact that they are Faust. Yep, pretty big thing to start with, but realistically, Dawn Office Faust and Gregor have a gimmick similar to that of Faust if Faust was not broken. Let me explain. Both units stack up unique effects until they reach the max stack. Once they do, they can perform a skill 3-2 instead of a skill 3. Pretty standard so far. The interesting part lies in the fact that they can also perform the skill 3-2 with enough resources using their counters, meaning that Gregor and Faust effectively get access to 2 skill 3-2s per rotation after their initial setup, which makes their kits much more potent. Now let's look at the kits up close. There are differences in the way that Gregor and Faust gain their effects, but both of them follow a similar pattern. They get stacks by hitting the enemy, and their skills hit the enemy more as they gain stacks. Faust gets extra stacks by using her skills, but her bonus stacks on her counter activate only once. Gregor, on the other hand, does not get bonus stacks from just using his skills, but he can get 10 stacks from using his counter and assist defense. Once each unit uses their skill 3-2, which will happen on the 4th turn if everything goes as planned and they're the only Dawn identities fielded, they get access to their second layer of unique effects in Battle Instinct and Dawn Herald, both of which enable Faust and Gregor to stack to 30 faster, thus enabling them to have a refractory period as short as 2 turns in between their nukes after the initial 3-turn wait. Now let's look at these nukes up close. Gregor's Crack of Dawn is a decent skill, with up to 265 damage into one target before bursts. Now 265 is not that much, and as for bursts, Gregor has a very visible lack of those. But with the fact that you can reuse the skill semi-frequently, it is definitely not too bad, and a follow-up from Faust further solidifies this fact. The fact that you're allowed to convert Guardian into Crack of Dawn means that there's rarely, if ever, a reason to give up on Dawn Splitter. Use that skill to give Gregor Dawn Herald for some faster stacking, deal some extra damage, and then hit your Cracks of Dawn using Gregor's counters. As for Faust, it's a bit more complicated, because she has 2 nukes instead of 1. Eject High Noon is her skill 3-2, and this one deals 263 damage at max ramp and with Gregor present. It also enjoys a burst count of 3, meaning it utilizes Scorch pretty efficiently. Once the skill is used, Faust becomes overheated for the rest of the turn, meaning she can't use her second defense. But you can just chain the 2 skills in a row. Dismemberment at High Noon is a stronger skill, sitting at up to 336 damage, and this one actually consumes all of Faust's stacks, making her begin her setup anew. Whereas Gregor likes using Dawn Splitter early, there's a case to be made for holding on to Eject High Noon for later, as Faust can output almost 600 damage before bursts and resistances by using the 2 skills back to back. Although, in certain approaches, you can also use the base eject for setup, as it provides the highest amount of coffins on use. The rest of this unit's skills are pretty simple. Thanks to the bonus coins and extra infliction on effects, the Dawns inflict a pretty good amount of burn, and their tremor also benefits from the scaling mechanics, although not from effects. As for damage numbers, it's nothing super formidable, although it's worth noting that Guardian plus Heat Haze do more damage than a Flash of Sunup on Gregor. Overall, Faust is the more offensive of the two. Her dismemberment skill is simply stronger than Crack of Dawn in most cases. And Faust is not reliant on the enemy proccing her assist defense for scaling like Gregor is. Gregor, on the other hand, provides supportive value, mainly in the form of Dawn Herald, which is part of why Faust is allowed to deal so much damage. Dawn Herald acts as a 10 to 15% dynamic modifier for the entirety of your team if they all use burn skills. And he also provides Dawn, Faust and Sinclair with extra offense level, bolstering them further. I honestly think that Faust is the more formidable unit in this banner, but she really wants to be used alongside Gregor for the follow-up damage and stacking value, as well as for the buffs. These are the basics of the new Dawn Office Identities, and they're not terribly complicated, so I won't add more. Instead, let's switch our attention to the special boy from Season 4, who is making his grand reappearance on the big stage. Dawn Office Sinclair. Sinclair was an often overrated identity before this banner, but luckily Kim Ji-hoon did not buy into the agenda, and he showered him with a metric ton of buffs. The buffs come in the form of the High Noon and from Dawnbreak to Sunset effects, and with both of them online, as well as the Dawn Office effect maxed out, Sinclair gets the following. He loses his first stagger threshold, and on top of that, he gains an unstagger that gives him a free blazing strike. Sinclair is completely immune from going below 25 SP due to his SP loss effects in his ego state. And at turn start, he heals 10 SP, bringing him back to 35 for free. He also gets a 15% HP shield and inflicts burn on enemies that attack him. As for his offensive side, that also got severely bolstered, as Sinclair gets 2 minimum speed and base power, 3 offense levels, as well as extra damage based on the amount of coins in the skills that he uses. Sinclair also gets to activate burn on skills 2 and 3, for some extra damage, and his Blazing Strike receives a massive damage buff of up to 245%, as well as an unbreakable coin. On top of this incredible set of upgrades, Sinclair now gets unique access to a new mechanic in Scorch Field, which acts the same way as Blood Fist, but for burn, and is used to give his Blazing Strike that fat 245% modifier. Before this, Sinclair's value lied primarily in his burn potency infliction, as he was the source of a lot of burn in his volatile ego state. With these buffs though, Sinclair can actually output good damage now, and he also won't give you cancer for staggering the enemy and thus not clashing with them anymore, which makes him a million times more enjoyable to use. Technically, all of these buffs get even stronger when Gregor and Faust die, but it's not exactly worth killing them for it, because there are no better units to slot in over them, and because another large part of the strength of the Dawn Office lies in their synergy. With Sinclair on field, Faust and Gregor get access to more skill trees that they can follow up on, and also some extra wrath damage, which isn't that big of a deal. The follow-ups though can actually make a difference, as with Sinclair on field, Faust can use Dismemberment as early as turn 2 for some great early damage and battle instinct. In the meantime, Gregor gets to use Crack of Dawn on turn 3 as well, meaning Sinclair adds tempo to the usually slow starting Dawns. He also gets Escape Apparatus, for no other reason than flavor, I guess. So, with all of these crazy buffs in play, should you use Sinclair? Well, let's look at team building for the entire Dawn Office, starting with Tremor. I started with this team because the Dawn Office have the least chances on traditional Tremor, They can obviously perform in a team that is more focused on Scorch, but that is a Burn core with Tremor secondary really. For basic Tremor, Gregor lacks bursts, Sinclair lacks Tremor at all, and Faust is only potentially good with her other Dawn allies present. A question you might have for Faust on Tremor is whether she can outdo Mao Faust as an everlasting user in short fights, and the answer is... unfortunately, no. The Faust slots need speed to make good use of Everlasting, and Mao Faust gets 5 haste for free on the first turn. Dawn Faust also has access to haste, but she needs to use an empowered skill 3 or counter for it, and without her allies that she can follow up on, Faust is stuck without that skill for 3 turns, and then she spends turn 4 actually using it, and is only available on turn 5. Whereas Mao Faust could just give you what you want 3 whole turns earlier. In a prolonged fight though, Dawn Faust will find more value elsewhere, of course. But classic Tremor is usually not good on long fights anyways, meaning that's a moot point. Now Burn. The actual team the new units and the buffed Sinclair are good on. Burn comes in 2 main flavors, House of Spiders and Scorch. Dark Flame exists, but it's overall an outscaled win condition at this point. Both teams utilize Burn and Tremor as bonus win conditions, while making use of the high physical damage of the units in their teams. Of course, Scorch is more status focused comparatively, but the framework is largely the same. The 2 brand new Dawns actually fit in both subtypes. Their prevalence in the Scorch-focused team is more or less obvious, as they are identities with Burn and Tremor, as well as very solid stat lines. Sinclair's addition also makes a lot of sense. I don't think Thumb Sinclair is even a real consideration here, but let me explain the difference between the two, and why Dawn is better. Thumb Sinclair gets value mainly from his bursts hitting into Scorch, the Scorch conversion on his skill 3, and his alright physical damage for his time. Dawn Sinclair, on the other hand, gets value from his greater physical damage now, as well as his burn activations, and the great amount of burn potency that he can output once he hits his ego form. The burn potency translates into greater damage numbers on all other bursts, and the presence of Sinclair also ends up speeding up the setup of his allies and leads to them dealing even more damage. Additionally, Thumb Sinclair's Scorch conversion is much less important now that many other identities can do the same. Overall, Dawn Sinclair is pretty goated now when combined with the 2 new units in short encounters with Burn. He is not the top priority pick, but he is a super worthwhile addition to the team once you get the new guys to buff him. As for the House of Spiders, this team is usually very strict in its team building, but as it stands, the new Dawns actually have a pretty simple way into the team. Blade Ryoshu needs to kill 6 allies to get 3 slots, and the total that you have available for that is 9. You want to keep Rien Yisang and Valencina Rodion alive for their super strong wrath damage, and you're allowed to add 1 more. The 1 more in question can easily be Faust, who gives up her Ring Apprentice identity here, and Gregor is not connected to the House of Spiders at all. Both units contribute to the wrath/damage win condition of the team, and their faster resetups, as well as free skill 3 2s, allow them to keep up in longer fights. And, of course, Dawn Herald hitting Echo Shear or Furioso leads to a lot of indirect damage output. Slotting in Sinclair is a lot harder though. He is also part of the House of Spiders system, and his other option is Pinky Sinclair as a sacrifice. Bringing Sinclair into the team means that you need to give up one of the 2 Nurse Fathers that you want to run, or the 3rd slot of Ryoshu. Now that is hard to beat, but it's not impossible. Giving up a slot on Ryoshu can be viable in fights where the damage output of your Echo Shear is not necessarily off cooldown, such as RR6 Section 2, which, yes, can see some Dawn Sinclair usage while hitting good turn counts. Rien also struggles in fights with adds or multiple parts, such as RR6 sections 2 and 5, due to his unfocused volley, meaning you technically can take Sinclair over him and see a genuine boost in damage when compared to an average luck Furioso. Overall, I don't think Sinclair is a big boost here either way, but the fact that he can genuinely be considered as an option in a team with such constraints speaks volumes to just how much he got buffed here. Overall, I encourage you guys to mix and match burn teams to try and add Sinclair, because he is an actually good identity after the buffs. And the new Dawns, of course, are just overall very good. They are not game-changing monsters, but I'd say they're super solid A-tier identities. Faust especially so, while Gregor can have some issues. Also, they're pretty good at count, so it's time to forget Hornet Merceau now, even as a comfort pick. I was totally right about that guy. Should you get the new Dawns? Yep, for sure. Again, I don't think these are complete game-breaking identities, but they are very welcome additions to Burn, and you should empty your pockets for them if that's an archetype that you run. If you disagree or have something to add, feel free to leave a comment below, and I might read it and respond. If you liked the video at any point, leave a like to let me know, and if you want to see more like this, consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Goodbye!